two illustrations as the foundation of a building. The first one belongs to Mr. A, while the second one belongs to Mr. B. Now, Mr. A has just laid foundation for two sections in the building. That is the kitchen and the living room, because he doesn't have money to complete the whole building yet. So he decided to lay the foundation and then built his kitchen and then his living room. So like few months after, when he had some monies, he decided to lay another foundation for the room and then built it, like just closely beside the living room, laid another foundation outside and then built it. Now when he was building the room, he didn't have as much money as when he was building the living room, so the foundation of the room was quite weaker than that of the living room and the kitchen. Now let's go to the next diagram. This is Mr. B. Mr. B does not also have enough money to complete the entire building, but he decided to lay the entire foundation so that anytime he has some monies, he'll just build the kitchen up. Anytime he has some more monies, he goes to build the living room up until the eventual building is completed. I'm going to relate this illustration to how people learn fashion designing. The difference between Mr. A and Mr. B is that Mr. B has laid a solid foundation for all the compartments of the building he wanted. The only thing left was for him to continue to build on each portion he wanted to build at any point in time. While Mr. B could only lay foundation for two portions and then built it up, waiting for when he would have another money to lay the foundation for the third portion, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, when he was about to lay foundation for the room, he didn't have so much money, so he probably said, just use small cement, use small sand, don't waste it, don't make it too much, just do like small portion, just mix everything together. It's just to have a room now, do you understand? And then they just patched it up and then laid another foundation for the room beside it and built it up. Suddenly there came the rain. The wind was blowing and everyone was afraid, running into their shelter. Mr. B's house could stand the storm, while Mr. A's house, only his kitchen and his living room stood the storm. The room fell because the foundation was not strong enough. Welcome to class. Today I'll be introducing to you pattern making. In the illustration I made earlier, I compared two builders and how they approached the building of their project. Now, comparing it to fashion designing or dressmaking, it is very important that we have a very strong foundation. And trust me, if you know and understand how to make the 5 basic patterns very well, there is no design on earth you would not be able to make, because all these designs you see around, they are build-ups on the basic foundation, and the basic foundation are the 5 basic blocks. So that takes me to what pattern making is generally. Pattern making is the art of drafting a model's body measurements and altering the same on a flat pattern paper before transferring to the actual fabric. Pattern making entails a whole lot. Entails drafting, entails altering, entails grading, and some other techniques. We will get there as we progress in our paid classes. Now, after you've taken the person's body measurements, the next thing is to represent that same measurement on a flat pattern paper following some rules and techniques. And afterwards, transfer the same paper to the fabric, adding your allowances and cutting out before you begin the process of sewing. There is an alternative to pattern making, which is the freehand technique. Not everybody uses paper to make patterns and then before they start making their clothes. Some people just chop directly on the fabric and they start sewing. But I put it to you that there are some designs you would never be able to make except you make a pattern for it. That is why it is very important to have this knowledge, so that when you get to those certain points in your sewing career or in your sewing journey, you won't get stuck because you don't even know how to go about a particular design. So like I said, this knowledge is very important. That takes me to the types of pattern blocks we have. Now, when I say pattern block, what I mean is that thing you draft out after you have measured somebody and then you represent it on a paper. That diagram, that thing you have is called a block. We have four types of pattern blocks: standard blocks, simplified blocks, trade blocks, and tailoring blocks. Standard block is the standard, as the name implies. Simplified blocks are blocks used by fashion tutors to teach students because they have been simplified in such a way that would make the students understand it properly. Trade blocks are the blocks that are used by mass producers, people who do large ready-to-wear lines. Trade blocks is what they use. If you remember the video I sent on cutting machines, you would see that there's a particular machine that is cutting through very large piles of fabric. So such people use a trade block. They place it on the very surface of the very first fabric. They place that pattern, then it is that pattern they follow while using their cutting machine to cut through all the heavy piles of fabrics. The last one is a tailoring block. Tailoring block is more like a bespoke block. Tailoring block is a block you design for a specific person. For example, if I wear size 8 and another person wears size 8, my size 8 might be different from the other person's size 8. In that, I might have a smaller bust while the person has a slightly bigger bust. If I want to make a dress for the two sizes, if I use the same block, it will be slightly bigger for one person and perfectly fit the other person. Now, tailoring block is saying that when I want to make a dress for two size 8 figures, I have to tailor this particular pattern to exactly size this person, and then tailor another block that will exactly size the other person. It is possible for two people to have the same bust size, say two bust size 38 for example. One person might have a very big bust and a narrow back, while the other person has a very small bust and a wider back. They use the same sizes, don't forget. While making patterns for these two people, it has to be tailored to the specific shape of each person. Now we have 5 basic blocks. The 5 basic blocks are the front bodice block, we have the back bodice block, we have the front skirt or trouser block, we have the back skirt or trouser block, and we have the sleeve block. Those are the 5 basic blocks we have. And if you know how to make all these blocks properly, there is no design on earth you would not be able to make, as long as you're creative and you can interpret such designs properly.